Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of the MPC Markets Morning Call, 24th of July, 2025. Stocks reached fresh record highs overnight as Trump finally sealed a meaningful trade deal with Japan. And I've got to say, in his press conference this morning, which is still going, actually, it's around about 45 odd minutes, or maybe anywhere up to an hour as it stands at the moment. He's quite jovial. So, and obviously, I think based on the art of the deal, once you get one person fall, the others start to fall as well. So, in terms of getting deals done, and obviously the Philippines and Indonesia probably not enough, but Japan's a fairly big fish. So, the deal was around about the 15% mark. And they're going to invest 550 billion into the US. As the biggest bondholders anyway, they already invest trillions of dollars into the US, so I don't think that's a massive deal. Although, the man's pitching it pretty hard at the moment. He's at an AI conference. It's largely been ramblings, to be honest, and he's doing a fair bit of over-promising, I believe. So, but that was really good for the Nikkei yesterday. That trade deal being done, it was up 3.5%. It obviously drove the Dow up as well, 1.1, the S&P up 0.8, NASDAQ up 0.43, and the Russell up 1.5. But the S&P and the NASDAQ would have been affected by Tesla and Google's earnings, which came out after the bell. Google currently up a couple of percent. Tesla's range between up 1% to, I believe it's down around about 2% at the moment. The earnings call, there was some positivity. The results, it's never about the results with Tesla, but it's more about the future. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. But overall, positive times. President Trump's immediately started to put pressure on the EU. If that domino falls, obviously, we'll get a few. We'll get a few more fall at some stage. He's generally set the tariffs or the threats of tariffs around about the 40 to 50% mark. And then the four deals that have been done have been on average 16%. So, again, set a high watermark. Which if you've been reading our content for quite some time, we got a couple of the AIs to summarize the art of the deal, and that's pretty much carbon copy of what he's been doing. Is in that book already, which I'm sure China already knows. China's obviously the big one, and but it doesn't benefit. It doesn't benefit anyone to have a trade war, as well. Butting up to Japan, which are really the only ones who are close to that high grade manufacturing that the Taiwanese do, and chip manufacturing, memory manufacturing is probably not a bad play as well in terms of having an alternative to for your mid to high grade chips being manufactured. So obviously being sold as a win as it stands at the moment, and I'm sure there'll be some AI announcements. I left a little bit late this morning waiting for him to finish, and it's been far too long in the end. So overall, we saw the healthcare sector really well bid last night. There wasn't anything in particular there. I think it's just a broader bounce. It is very cheap. And what I think people are realizing, though, is that the huge threats were on those pharma companies and those health technology companies. And if Trump's starting at 50 and ending up at 15, then the 200% that he's threatening, or 100 to 200% that he's threatening the pharma companies with, is probably more likely to be in the 30 to 40% range. So I think the market is now fully priced in Trump minusing 75% from everything he says. So the chip sector was up as well, pretty strong after getting hit yesterday. Texas Instruments was down, poor earnings. They're the leader in analog, which it's kind of like saying you're the leader in the horse and cart. Raytheon had a really good day today on the back of a bunch of upgrades. They had the initial earnings was taken poorly, but a few other companies in the sector were a little bit more bullish than the RTX CEO, and it turned around today, and I think was just across the board was upgraded. So that it's a fresh record or fresh 52-week high, and prospects are very good. So that defence sector doing very well. Palantir followed as well. Netflix continued to drift off a little bit in the banking sector again, fairly solid. So Google was down 0.5%. Obviously, it's now turned around to be up a couple of percent in the aftermarket. So net up 1.5%. Tesla was flat and is, as we speak, is down around the 2% mark. That could bounce around though, because we've got Elon speaking at the moment in the earnings call, and I mean, who knows? Generally, it's down. Well, it's effectively down 3% as at 8:15 here in the morning. So we will get to Tesla now. Just going into a little bit more detail. They missed on they 12% year-on-year revenue decline to 22.5 billion. Launched Robotaxi in Austin, expanded the AI training infrastructure, and began production on a more affordable vehicle for higher volumes later this year. Energy storage and services segments grew, record Powerwall deployments, 17% rise in services revenue, and they expanded into India and set delivery records in key Asian markets. So that was the actual earnings. Everyone expected them to essentially not do particularly well. It's all about the future. So Musk, when he came on the call, he said, this is just a list of some outlandish, some not comments. Autonomous ride-hailing, i.e. robo-taxis, will probably reach half of the US by the end of the year. That's very unlikely to happen, but nice try. Currently looking for robo-taxi regulation approval in the Bay Area, Nevada, Arizona, Florida, and more. So Nevada, Florida are new ones, and more is new. So that's slightly positive. And Tesla's close to getting approval for fully self-driving in the Netherlands, and from there the EU. That's fairly new, and sales in Europe will pick up once the FSD is approved. Also true. Working through regulatory challenges for the supervised fully self-driving in China, and the Optimus robot prototypes set to be ready this year. Production at scale next year. There's been very little detail around this, but broadly, that's the timeline that he's been talking about in the past. He was saying 5,000 next year, 500,000 the following year, and then the beauty of them is the first 5,000 build the next 500,000. So and they don't ask for pay rises, and they don't go on strike. So, and they also replace their own batteries. They sit on a charging rack. So pretty impressive. He also spoke about Neuralink, which I thought was a weird thing for him to talk about. Everyone's freaked out by chips in their brain. I don't know why he would focus on that at this point. I think he's probably got enough things on his plate, like fully autonomous robots, fully self-driving cars, to then be going and taking on, having a chip in your brain. And, the normal people, us muggles can only handle a couple of innovative ideas at a time. So that was a bit of an odd one to bring up, but Elon's an odd guy, but he thinks with these robot the Optimus robots as well, that it won't just be for manufacturing. He seems to believe that it'll be like a fridge, be a domestic household item, where you can essentially have it do chores for you while you're out of the house, and that's would assume would be fairly long term, but that does make a little bit of sense, I guess, in the long term. Google was up a couple of percent, had rallied into the earnings, so probably has done pretty well to stay up. They beat top and bottom line. Everyone does. Google Cloud saw standout growth, revenue surging 32%. Operating margin rose as well on that, and I think their capital expenditure was 85 billion, a 13% increase from last year. Aggressive AI and cloud infrastructure investment there, which no one's going to have a problem with. YouTube and cloud services, even as short-term free cash flow dipped due to higher investments, but there's momentum in search, YouTube and cloud services. I don't know where they've got the stats we've seen on search. They're losing ground to new AIs, but maybe they're starting to stabilize that with the Gemini answers at the top of the screen there whenever you Google something. IBM got hit, which was a bit of a surprise. The old school guys have been doing pretty well. Bit of an outlier, but they were below expectations, which is pretty hard to do in the US. But they raised their full year cash flow guidance on the back of continued AI demand. But you've got to beat in the US, otherwise you get hit. So they were down 5%. ServiceNow lifted its full year guidance and beat Wall Street estimates, and they rallied around about 7.5%. That whole services tech sector has been really quite dour in the last probably at least month, I would say, and so that's probably it's a nice little bounce back overall in that stock. So and they're the ones that essentially you can go and buy all the building blocks if you don't have your own AI team, and I would say would be one of the first ports of call to gain efficiencies across the board and create AI agents that can start doing those small repetitive tasks for your staff. That then your staff can go and focus on obviously more complex and bigger things. So I think that company will do well in the long term, and it's just extraordinarily expensive. So it at PE is well above 100. And that was really it for earnings overall. HIMS was an outstanding move last night, up around about 16%. Haven't seen any news on that, but that the online healthcare provider, just rocketing back up. I think it'll be up about 30% over the last few weeks, I would imagine. And now we're going to head to commodities now. Iron ore took its first breather in basically 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's quite healthy personally. Lithium also took its first breather again, probably fairly healthy. They have been on an absolute tear. I'm a bit skeptical in the lithium sector, just on the back of, there are a bunch of mothball mines, and the junior mining sector loves to come up with a new drilling result, and when the thematic's hot, and then do a cap raise. So we're probably looking to sell into this in any strength here in the lithium sector. Gold drifted a little. Silver came within 9 cents of having a 4 at the front, $40. Copper nearly got to $6 overnight as well, up 1.3. Platinum again took a breather, and uranium rallied 2.5%. There was no real major news there in that sector. I think it's just cheap generally, to be honest. I would imagine maybe the spot price moved up or something along those lines. The Aussie dollar was up around about 1% as well. So now we've got the calendar coming up here. So not much for the rest of the week. That's why I've cut and pasted this on the slides here. Intel, Honeywell might be slightly interesting. Union Pacific, boring. NatWest, ICI, Bank, Aon, all pretty boring as well. Durable goods with PCE on Friday night. That will be pretty important. Governor Bullock speaks today. But the local market here, we have a raft of quarterly updates today. So here's the list. Fortescue, Coronado, Insignia, Karoon, Lynas, Northern Star, Sandfire Resources, and Syrah. And then Macquarie Group will host its annual general meeting starting at 10:30 at its Sydney headquarters. And then you've got Michelle Bullock talking about inflation and employment, the dual mandate of the RBA, at a Annika Foundation lunch at 1 o'clock in Sydney. So a lot to watch out for there. I dare say we'll just have broad strength on the back of the US move. Commodities have been going okay. We'll see continued rallying in the healthcare sector. Telix took a massive tumble yesterday, down around about 13 or 14%. I would expect that to reverse fairly quickly. It's a broad misunderstanding of what happened with Telix. They actually maintained guidance, hit all their targets, revenue up 63% year on year, and but they got an SEC request, which more to do with the process of their FDA approval. Super common. Apparently, it happens all the time, and they've happened increasingly since Trump's gotten into power. So I would say fairly decent buying opportunity there. The shorters in the ASX market have probably been feeling a little bit battered and bruised. They're short uranium, they're short lithium, and they're short some of the healthcare names. Some of them anywhere, I think 5 out of the top 10 are up anywhere from 40 to 100% in the last month. But just for your reference, Paladin and Boss are the top 2 shorted in Australia, followed by the lithium stocks. So there could be some wild moves overall, but I don't expect a hell of a lot out of today. Generally, keep your eye on those quarterly updates, and we're really gearing up for next week, where we've got Microsoft, Meta, and Apple that Wednesday, Thursday. Advanced GDP will be massive in the US, FOMC meeting, and then core PCE on the Thursday, and then payroll Friday. So I would largely expect the next 4 to 5 days we will drift higher, and overall, as there won't be anything to really derail any sort of rally, so the momentum will probably stick with the upside. CSL looking very good, and I think ResMed as well. So yeah, there'll be plenty of opportunities out there if you're interested in the short term, and then yeah, we'll probably get, we'll see some form of meaningful moves or pivot points, I would say, from about Wednesday onwards next week. Thanks for listening this morning, and we'll speak again tomorrow. General advice warning. The content presented in this presentation is intended for informational purposes only and provides general advice only. It does not take into account your personal objectives, financial situation, or specific needs. This information should not be the sole resource when making investment decisions. We strongly recommend you seek the advice of a financial professional.